that has seed money for one more year. And then we'll see if that all works in relation with the rest of the budget. The money for the, if we do decide to pay off part or all of the public works building, that money will come out of our money that is in savings at this point. But it's all at the discussion level at this point. That's it.
Okay. Any discussion? Public Works, Trustee Walkington.
I really don't have that much. Hopefully we had our last snowstorm yesterday.
Well, we'll hang on to that
Hang
thought.
on to that thought. Our regular public works meeting is tomorrow at 6:30.
Okay. Public Safety, Trustee Priest.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a meeting tonight, and through our discussion at that meeting was mostly for next year's budget, what we're going to see if we have any projects that we're going to go for next year. Also, we were discussing another workshop that we might have. We had a one on the identity theft this year, and we're thinking about something else next year, maybe with the fire department or whatever. Another thing that we also reviewed the police report from last month. One thing I do want to say, and it's because that almost happened to me, okay, it was a couple of last week or the week before, almost a year, basically, okay? So, right now it's hunting season, it's Thanksgiving also, okay? A lot of people are going out in the woods hunting and stuff like that. I just wanted to, the residents who are doing that, use caution, use, common sense, make sure you know what you're looking, where you're shooting at. Even it's bowl season also, but also I also want to caution everybody driving, because right now the deer are just kind of going crazy. They're not really thinking about, a car or anything else like that. And like I said, two of them came out in front of me at, on 120, and the other guy next to me hit one. So so just be careful and, be cautious, be alert, and hopefully you have a happy Thanksgiving. That's all.
Thank you, Wally. All right, next up is Wetlands and Open Spaces, and also a report on the Great Age Club. Trustee Duberstein.
We had our wetlands meeting last week, and we're talking about the stewardship of Cranberry Lake and doing some addition of trees and shrubs gradually with each budget to enhance the area and make sure that when the oak trees fall that there are replacements, and also to give a variety of shrubs and trees for the woodlands. And the Great Age Club, their Christmas party will be December 3rd, and all is well.
Okay. Moving on to our media manager, Trustee Darrenowski. Well, you put our meetings on the website and such.
Oh, okay.
We were supposed to chat about it, but you weren't at the last meeting, so that's okay. So nothing to report this time.
Well, all the meetings are up and ready to go. I got them all up last night, and so go to www.youtube.com/HainesvilleIL. Anybody who is not able to attend the meetings, they are always up online. You can always see the meeting in its entirety, and this way, if you're not able to attend on our Tuesday at 7 p.m., you can always just go in and see that.
And we have a link through our website, so.
Did you say YouTube?
Yeah, yeah.
Do we have any idea how many people are accessing it?
I have 9 subscribers right now, which is, that means they get an update as far as the instant that the video is posted, they'll get an email. As far as actually how many people individually see the meeting itself, that's actually right on usually about 14 to 15 people watch it, so, which is 14 to 15 people more than we normally have at the meeting, so since it's free, I think it's a steal at twice the price.
So John, if they go to our website and they click the link for YouTube and they start watching the meeting or watch a portion of it,
Yeah.
they can see in the corner, right, how many
Yeah.
people have watched it so far? Okay.
I've never seen that. I go online every month and pay my utilities.
Did you?
It's on the front page,
Right on the front
right-hand
page.
side. It says YouTube.
Right, it's, I'll have to look
On
at it.
the
I guess I
homepage.
haven't noticed it.
Yeah,
It's, when I walk under something.
Well, I'm trying to find it, I've just never seen it.
Yeah, it is on the front
I haven't
page.
seen it on the newsletter either. So.
Okay.
How
I agree.
soon, how soon does the video get online? Like this meeting here, when will we see it? A day, 2 days?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little hard here.
How soon will the video be available?
Well, it's a personal little project of mine, so I kind of, depending on how long the meeting takes, I have to take it home, download it, get it onto my computer, then upload it to YouTube, so sometimes that takes a little while, because the longer the meeting goes, actually, it's pretty much a 1-for-1. It doesn't, I mean, I have 10 gigs up, and it still takes me a while to post like a.
But I think he wants a timeline, John,
Like,
so
it's-
a week from now.
Hopefully I try to get it done in less than a week, so I try to get it as quickly as I can, but obviously getting home, the later I get home, the work and everything else, you know.
Is the last one that I missed, that was the first one about conservancy on YouTube right now?
The 20-second, yeah, 20 seconds.
Well, no. All that we've had so far is I sent out a letter to Tall Oak residents asking them to come to an informal coffee.
Informal coffee.
Yeah, to start a conversation. That's not on there.
This is the board meeting.
And then I sent a follow-up letter to everyone, whether they attended the coffee or not.
Okay.
Okay? And now this is the formal meeting. It doesn't mean that there won't be any other discussion, but our goal is hopefully to have, well, obviously, we're still missing residents tonight, but to have you to have a really good understanding of where we are with this, with the legal requirements and what this means for you as the homeowner and what it means for us as the village government.
I think I'm gonna take it.
Okay? All right. Vic, yes, you wanted to ask something quick?
Has the village received any, what you call complaints or, in the sense of violations to what we're talking about from Army Corps of Engineers?
Not from Army Corps, but we had an inquiry, which I'll talk about in a minute. That will actually be the start of the
I
meeting.
understand there's
Yeah, so I will bring,
Army Corps of Engineers, have they complained about violations? to the
no,
village
not recently, no.
For 12 years?
We're trying to avoid that
Well,
because we can get fined very heavily and so can you.
And, of course, since they turned it over
To the village, yes.
now-
And I will explain that. We're getting to that item of business in a few minutes, so bear with us, okay? Okay, so John will get this meeting on within a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think they tonight, I mean, it's just, depends on.
Well,
the meeting.
let's, yeah, I mean, certainly I would say a few days should always be the standard. I wouldn't expect you to have it on tonight, John. That would be asking a lot, but I think a week is fair. Okay, let's move on to trustee Barrett. Kevin, you and I haven't had a chance to talk yet, but is there anything you wanted to report about your recent transportation meetings or the shutting down of Rollins Road?
Well, it's a nightmare out there. The Canadian National Railway has now got everything shut down so they can build their deflection spur so that they can shuttle rail traffic off so that they can start building their overpass. And right now it's going to be shut down for 2 weeks while they put the spur in. If you're coming north on Hainesville Road, the only way you can go once you get to Rollins is west. So that's creating an inconvenience. A quick thoroughfare, the detour is routed Washington, but that can be a real nightmare during morning rush hour when you're taking your kids to school or you're heading towards the east. So a lot of people started using Shorewood, and then they started paving Shorewood. So I don't know who's coordinating all these different projects, but it's going to be a tough one right now. I think the best thing that everybody can do is have a little bit of patience, and if you can time your travels to move during off-peak hours, that would be good. Because Washington.
Night school.
Yeah, Washington is still officially closed going west. So unfortunately, there's a lot of people that haven't been paying attention to the signs, and Officer Segretti's been making a very good statement to these people going, why are you out here on this road from Round Lake Park, PD? He's been cracking a lot of knuckles, so that's supposed to open up by December, and it'll be open all winter going east and west from Hainesville Road West. And then today in my inbox, I picked up a survey from the Illinois Toll Authority, and I want to do a survey with the Route 53 feasibility project. So I haven't even opened that one up yet because that looks like that.
And, you know, in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that because actually there is 2 new committees. You know, Lake County's working with the Tollway Authority now on the Route 53 120 project. I reported at the last board meeting I was asked to sit on both the Finance Committee and also the Land Use Committee. So we have had 2 Finance Committee meetings and I think our first Land Use Committee meeting will be scheduled in December. But importantly, the Tollway has sent out, it's just one means, but it's an important means of getting information to all iPass holders. A survey went out by email. So please look for that and respond to it. It is very important information. Really important survey. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to fill out, and at the end they also do give you a space if you want to add any additional comments or information, depending how often you travel or if you're dependent on that for your work or whatever the case is. But please fill that out because that's really important.
I heard say that last week. What is that survey exactly for? To get our opinion on if they should build it?
It's
I haven't opened it up yet.
well, yeah, they want to know how many people travel this route.
Okay.
Okay, so part of the survey asks you, you know, what was your recent route? You know, and you know, they ask you to put in a physical address. Where were you leaving from, and what was your destination, and why were you going there? And you know, do you do this trip every day? Is it 3 times a week? Is it once a month? And then it's going to ask you a variety of other questions pertaining to that trip. But it's an easy survey. It's kind of exciting. If you're excited about Route 53, you'll enjoy taking the survey. So please look for that.
Also, if you fill it out, you get a shot at a $500 gift card.
Leave it to Jerry to notice that.
Mine's turned in already.
Good man.
From the state of Illinois.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my tax return. They said it was gonna be here. I had to file an amended tax return a year ago, and I'm still waiting for my money.
You've seen those IOU gift cards,
You know,
haven't you,
the
Jerry?
patients you just talked about, good job.
The other thing is that there's 2 websites available, so you can monitor Washington Street, which is washingtonstreetinfo.com. And then the one for Rollins Road is rollinsroadgateway.com. And then there's also a live feed up on Lake County Passages, so you can actually see what's going on up there on the intersection while it's working up there. It's not nice over there, and it's going to be even tougher as we get closer to the holiday with all the traffic trying to feed in and out of the retail area there.
I have a question about that.
Yes, ma'am.
There's some sign that says.
Well, you know what, I'm not gonna allow questions, we really shouldn't have questions at this time.
Okay.
I'm gonna allow them later on in the business because it's pertaining to your property. So I wanna keep it moving because I think our final topic is gonna eat up a lot of time. So maybe at the end of the meeting, we can touch on that. Special events, I'm gonna be very brief. We had a recent meeting where we brought in some additional expertise. We had the directors of both the Grays Lake Chamber and the Round Lake Area Chamber, and also a resident who's not new to the community. He's been here several years, but he brought forth some of his expertise because he's an event coordinator for his employer. So we kind of brainstormed, kicked around a lot of ideas. We're meeting again right before the Thanksgiving, and so we expect that we'll have something to report at the December board meeting, or maybe even seeking additional input. The only thing I will caution you is that everyone agreed, hands down, our major challenge, which doing certain events in this community, is parking. And so, depending on how big a event you're trying to do and who you're trying to draw, parking is always going to be a challenge. So, how do you handle that, or do you offer a shuttle service? And even if you offer a shuttle service, where do they park and where are you shuttling for? But we will have more to report, so. Let's move on to business. Item 1 is the IML RMA renewal of village insurance. This is our village insurance policy for the sum of $33,010.30. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
At the finance committee, we did suggest that we would look into, for next year, to just see if how private insurance compares.
Okay, yeah, we looked at that a couple of years ago,
Right.
but we should look at it every couple of years, yeah.
So we're gonna do that again.
Okay, yeah,
Not for this, but for.
the following, yeah, okay. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Trustees Derenoski,
Aye.
Kreese,
Aye.
Duberstein.
Aye.
Barrett.
Aye.
Daly.
Aye.
And Walkington.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item up is the tax levy ordinance for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2013, and ending April 30th, 2014.
No.
No, but that's what, I'm reading what it says, but that's incorrect.
No, it's the tax bill season.
Taxes.
Taxes.
Oh, it's the tax roll,
Tax
okay,
is
okay.
The 2013 calendar year, so this falls with, yeah.
So this is correct. Okay, it's just confusing to read that out loud.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustees Derenoski,
Aye.
Kreese.
Aye.
Duberstein.
Aye.
Barrett.
Aye.
Daly.
Aye.
And Walkington.
Aye.
Ordinance, motion carried, ordinance 13-11-178.
Okay.
Can we complete item 5 before moving on?
I think that would be a great idea. That way we can just leave the rest of the evening for Cranberry Lake. Do we need an official vote? Do we just-
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Move it out? Okay. We have a motion and a second? All in favor? Aye. All right, and opposed? All right, item 5 is discussion and approval of having only one regular board meeting for the months of January through March, held on the 4th Tuesday as follows: January 28th, February 25th, and March 25th, 2014.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Who seconded it, I'm sorry?
Jen?
Thank you. I have discussion.
Mike?
The only thing that I have, I'm gonna request is I'm getting the standing committee meeting dates out. So this would affect trustee Daly and trustee Reese. Do you want your meetings changed
To the 4th.
to the 4th meeting? And finance at 6:30? Okay, and public safety at 6. Thank you. That's all I have.
Good question. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Trustees Derenoski,
Aye.
Kreese. Duberstein. Barrett. Daly.
Aye.
And Walkington.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, we're going to move to items 3 and 4, which is the hot topic of the evening, which is the Cranberry Lake Conservancy and the Conservancy easement that is on single-family homeowners' properties along Tall Oak Drive. So the question is, how did we get where we're sitting here today in 2013? A couple months ago, I had 2 residents come to me, and they were greatly concerned and wanted me to provide a written legal opinion or answer in regards to their question. And what spurred them, I believe, to ask these questions is that earlier this year, we as the village board were talking about how we had completed a 5-year restoration project of the Cranberry Lake Conservancy. And these residents who have followed their deed, covenant, or restriction on their conservancy easement on their property to the T and have abided and kept that area natural. However, they also have invasive species on some of their lots, which is buckthorn. And that buckthorn has grown excessively because buckthorn takes over everything. So they said, you can't be finished with the 5-year conservancy restoration because you haven't removed the buckthorn from our property. And not only is it still there, it has grown and it's taken over everything and it's worse than ever. And, you know, why hasn't this occurred? And quite frankly, I will admit I didn't have an answer on the spot because I was confused. I truly believed that the village had executed the project it was supposed to do at that time. The only battle that I had confronted with some homeowners since I became mayor this time in moving in, when I was mayor previously, Cranberry Lake was not built yet. I was involved in the development agreement and some of that, but it had not been built yet. And so I told those homeowners that I would go back and research that. What I had dealt with is encroachment issues. And what I have come to find when I've talked to different people about this topic, whether it's other homeowners, board members, attorneys, engineers, whoever, there's even confusion about what encroachment means and the conservancy easement. Encroachment is those homeowners that have gone beyond their property line and mowed further or planted gardens or whatever. That is extending your property, which is not yours. That's doing things with property that is not yours. That is encroachment. And the previous administration had to address that issue, and I also had to address that issue. I had some residents unknowingly that actually had asked me this question probably a year or two ago, except they were using the word encroachment. And so I thought we were always talking about property outside their property line. So when I went back and reviewed all the documents, and I had to pull a box out of storage from 2005 and 2006 to find some of the stuff. And after I got these documents together, I contacted our attorney, Jim Rock from Ansel Link, and I said, I need you to come here and sit down with me and walk through these documents with me. One fact that we do know, and Vic, part of the answer to your question is in this document. There may be some additional material we can get for you. Some of it I don't know if you want because it probably won't be easy reading. But there is a document that is the actual Army Corps permit. And everybody here has a copy. Anybody here tonight that wasn't at the coffee and didn't get a copy, we'll make sure you leave with a copy. It is the permit that allowed all this building to occur. And that is when the tone or conditions were set of what had to be done with this Cranberry Lake Conservancy. Now, when lots started being sold, and particularly on Tall Oak Drive, all those lots have a conservancy easement, and along with that easement is what was called a deed, covenant, or restriction. So if you are a original homeowner, you certainly were aware of this. If you are a second or even the third homeowner, you still get this at closing. Whether you really are aware of it, that depends. If you have an attorney at your closing, some do, some don't. an attorney typically would point out a deed, covenant, or restriction, or at least I would hope. It's also brought up again in your title search. Those types of things, your title search insurance, that type of deed, covenant, or restriction would also be pointed out as well. In that deed covenant restriction, it clearly states what you can or cannot do with that property. It talks about no mowing. It talks about no permanent structures. And it was Deer Point's job at the time when they sold you the home to make you aware and enforce those conditions. And at the time when Deer Point was done and said, we're done, we built out, and the village accepted the subdivision, then the Army Corps sent a letter to the village saying, it's our understanding Deer Point is done, and the village has accepted the subdivision. And that letter was a reminder of that permit. And what it tells the village in that letter is that you, the village, are now responsible for enforcement of that deed restriction covenant period in perpetuity, which means forever and ever and ever. Now, when I read that, and I talked to our attorney about it, it clicked right away. My God, these residents are right. They are absolutely right. That conservancy easement should have been included in the 5-year restoration plan. And I also want to explain there's a difference between these main 19 lots we're talking about. At the far western end, that is more woodland along that area, and that's where a lot of the buckthorn is. That was brought to my attention. And when you go further east, it becomes more of a savanna, so there isn't as much trees or that types of things there. But the bottom line is, it is our job to remove the buckthorn. We don't want to leave it there anyway. We have spent a lot of time and energy and money to remove buckthorn. We don't want to leave it somewhere where it's going to end up spreading back in anyway. Now, if we do nothing at this point, quite frankly, I am not doing my responsibility as a village official, because now I'm aware of our legal obligation, and if I ignore it, I'm not doing my job. And those residents who came to me with the questions in the first place would have every right to tell this village or this board, you should do this. And if you won't do it, we'll go to the Army Corps, and they would have every right to do so. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, because we're going to make measures to rectify this, because it should be rectified. The Army Corps Police isn't out every day, but if they're summoned out, particularly by a resident, they will come out. And they would require action, immediate action. And Army Corps is serious business. I dealt with them once with development on the east side regarding an issue where a resident had decided to put a beach in their backyard along a wetland. It was amazing how much work that resident did in one weekend. And actually they got fined $10,000. Could have been a lot more, and they had to restore it back to the way it was. So this is not something to play with. Now, the good news is there's some people who are excited about it, because people that have buckthorn in their yard would like to get rid of buckthorn, and I don't blame them. What happens with the rest of the property? Dave Coulter is here from Native Restoration Services. He led the 5-year restoration plan. We consulted him, we had him at the coffee to listen to the residents, to talk about the conservancy area and options that we could do. So we understand, you're not going to have 6-foot weeds. We're not talking about putting cattails in your yard or anything like that. There are options. After hearing you, I think that what we are hearing from almost everybody is that you want low native plant species, nothing that would be real high, nothing that would block your view. The other thing that we received information on is on, depending where your lot is located and what the individual needs are, is if you think that you need a tree in your yard and or some shrubs, those are going to be made available to you. So if you value this conservancy or enjoy what you moved, to back up to, you're going to have more of it. It's not the weeds. I mean, we did a PowerPoint, which I think we should show at a future meeting again, to show the transformation of how dense the trails used to be and the overgrown invasive species that used to be there, that it's so much more open now. And that will continue to take place, because whether the easement was included or not, what will go on in perpetuity is every few years there's going to have to be burns. Every few years things will need to be herbicided. There will be different things that will have to be done that will make sure that the invasive species, purple loosestrife and buckthorn are the main culprits. We are happy to report we have a lot of baby oak trees out there that we've noticed. We've talked about inventorying them this spring to see how many we have. So we want to help those things come along. So at this time, I think I'm going to give the floor to Jim Rock if he wants to add to that a little bit. Or if I covered the legalese fairly well.
Mayor, I think you did. But I think the essence is that these are not standards that were established by the village. These are standards that were established by the Army Corps of Engineers in order to allow development of the subdivision. And then the Army Corps, as part of allowing that, granting that permit, required the establishment of the conservancy easement, required that deed restrictions be recorded in perpetuity on the lands of the homes that abut the conservancy easement, and then requires that the village enforce the deed restrictions. Again, it's not a question of the village's decision that these are the things that can and can't go on. The village is required to enforce this in perpetuity. There are, in the deed restrictions, it does say, it gives all the restrictions of the things that cannot be done within the conservancy. And then it says, without the express written consent of the Army Corps of Engineers. That's a question that's come up. Our experience is the Army Corps is not going to grant express written consent to do those things because it gave the permit and established the buffer zone in exchange for allowing the development to occur. There's no reason for the Army Corps to change its mind about that, and one of the reasons that they won't use to make that determination is I want to plant sod in my backyard or some other substance that runs counter to the permit, and that's not permission that they're going to grant.
Can I make a comment?
Mm-hmm.
I certainly.
Use your mic.
I'm aware of your frustration because I'm in it too. And there were a comedy of errors from the fact that the developer put the sod in way back beyond the conservancy easement, so it led us to believe that it was okay to use it. There was discussion at the board meeting saying that you can go out and do as you wish up to the property line. And those of us that did that with the full understanding that it was okay and that we only had to deal with our neighbors if they disagreed with us. So I understand how you feel because I'm in the same boat. I've had I live at 82 Toll, for those of you that don't know that. So, so my property is equally affected. So I just want you to know that this is not something that is easily done without our realizing all the feelings that go with it.
Well, and the other thing I also want to add, going back to the deed restriction covenant itself, which every homeowner has. I understand that you may not have read it, especially if you're the second or third homeowner at closing or whatever, but nonetheless, it does say, the restricted property is a wetland under the regulatory jurisdiction of the Chicago District of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Blah, 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 blah. Whereas the grantor is the applicant for a Corps of Engineer permit, and it refers to the permit number that was issued to this village and Deer Point Homes to, you know, do everything they did over there. And then it goes on to talk about your easement specifically. And then it lists a numbers of conditions. And I just want you to understand, it keeps saying the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer. This is nothing the village of Hainesville came up with or wrote, and it's nothing we can repeal. In fact, whatever was said at a board meeting or anywhere in any letter that you got from this village hall, nobody at that time, nor do I or this entire board, have the authority to override the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I might as well tell you tonight that I've decided that even though the speed limit on Hainesville Road says 40, I'm gonna make it 60, and you have my permission to do 60. That's where we're at legally. So the one that stands out the most, and depending how you view it, is either exciting or I get it, it's disappointing. You can't, there'll be no removal or destruction of trees or plants, mowing, draining, plowing, mining. If you have any mining going on, I'd like to know about it. Removal of topsoil, sand, rock, gravel, and so on and so forth. Let's face it, it's mainly the mowing and the plants and the permanent structures. This is it. We can't ignore it. So where do we go from here? We're looking at a 2-year restoration plan to catch up that sliver. I know it's a lot of land to you, but in the scope of the whole conservancy, I think it's fair to say Dave Coulter probably views it as a little sliver he needs to catch up with the rest of this big conservancy. So he's saying, yeah, Linda, we can do this in 2 years. So we would be looking at starting this next year and giving you some type of timeline of, you know, most likely having everything that needs to be moved or changed within the conservancy easement, let's say by August 1st of 2014, subject to approval and agreement from this board. But I think that would make a lot of sense. And then I want to meet with each property owner and sit down with you and talk about your easement specifically and your property, so we understand what's going on in your easement. Is the issue that you are filled with buckthorn? Is the issue that you have a fence that this village issued a permit for, and that permit should have been issued only up to the conservancy easement line, which means that we have 3 fences that need to be moved back at the village's expense. I will probably be meeting with, or trying to meet with those homeowners first. But my goal is to meet with each person and us have an agreement and understanding of how we'll move forward. With that, at this time, I'd kind of like to open it to the board first for the trustees to ask questions, whether it's to me, Jim Rock, or Dave Coulter. Are there any questions from any of the trustees?
If I understand correctly, we we have no choice in conditions of this conservancy, correct?
Yes. We are standards that you're correct, that they're not standards that the village has any authority to change or adapt, and that they weren't established by the village and can't be changed by the village.
So we have no right as a board to waive or overlook any of the conditions.
That's correct.
So even if we liked, or we were relatives to any one of these folks sitting here and we wanted to do a favor, we can't change it.
No, not without express written consent of the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's our pretty firm belief that we're not going to get express written consent. And of course, you know, that's that the residents certainly could approach the Army Corps with those questions. My belief is that they won't be successful in getting them changed.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Okay, at this time, we're gonna open it to the public, so if you have a question, you could raise your hand, and I am gonna ask everybody to just move forward to the mic so we can all hear you, and so maybe other Tall Oak residents that aren't here when they watch this can hear it on the audio from YouTube. So, any other questions or comments? Lourdes, yes, please.
Say my name again?
Yes.
Lourdes Galvez, 54 Tall Oak Drive. Okay, so since this sounds like it's happening, who is going to maintain this? Because it was never maintained before. They let the buckthorn go wild and told us to remove it on the other side of the path. If you wanted the buckthorn gone, it was up to us to take it out. Okay?
So that was wrong, that shouldn't have been.
Everything's been wrong since we were sold the property. I mean, we were told we were in the Grays Lake zip code, 60030. It was closed at it was changed at my closing. So there's been a lot of misconceptions and a lot of things that the builder did wrong, including a letter they had on the wall stating they were in the Grays Lake School District. No one was successful in suing Rich Petrenic was the problem. A lot of people moved in that didn't know how to speak English or didn't know what had happened to them. And me, as a tiny little soldier, I tried. I canvassed the entire neighborhood. I got 300 signatures. Didn't do any good. They even told me they were going to change the zip code. Never happened. Okay. My daughter had to go to Round Lake School District. I came from Buffalo Grove Wheeling area. I know that's different from what we're talking about now. But I've been lied to by, and when you guys say it's in your papers as a deed, I was 31 years old, 32 maybe. Nobody really understands that legal garbo until I went and got my license as a broker to be a real estate agent, just for my own knowledge. That's not my career. Just so I understood this kind of stuff. And I went and did that. A lot of us, probably 90% of the people in here don't understand any of the deeds. So that's why you do hire a lawyer. And unfortunately, a lot of us were lied to. The village gave us information that was incorrect, and we're still getting information that's incorrect. I understand now the Army Corps is the one that's doing this. So we're not going to be able to change this. My concern is they can have the land, but I don't feel I should pay taxes for something that's not going to be mine anymore, and I can't use.
Well,
I don't want to look at flowers.
you
I don't
can't-
want mosquitoes. I already lived it. You guys haven't lived it. I have.
The
I live
ownership
with
of,
coyotes.
the ownership of the land isn't changing. It's staying the way it is.
I can give it back. I don't want it. I
There's
don't
no
want
one-
weeds.
There's no one to give it back to.
Okay,
This
so
is- all this-
basically we'll sell, and
What
that's what
this
you're
is
telling
a
me.
deed,
Okay.
a deed restriction that exists on the land and an easement, just like the.
I will be putting my house up for sale. I will guarantee that. And I don't want a yard full of coyotes and buckthorn. Bottom line, you guys don't live there.
Right.
I live there. I've been there.
Yeah,
I had
Lourdes,
to.
one thing please think about at least, please consider, is I think the time you're talking about though is before Dave Coulter started the 5-year restoration. So a lot of burns have been done, a lot of the invasive species have been removed, and we're gonna keep doing that. So we keep, well, that's why you have to keep doing it. You know what, Dave, why don't you take the floor and explain what
Yeah,
you
sure.
do?
That's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
I know.
I'm not making you sit down, oh, here,
It
give him
comes
this mic.
back unless you mow it. It keeps coming back. I've lived it. I've been there. So.
Well, we have areas of
Keep up
the,
on it. That's gonna be very expensive to keep that.
well, we've been doing it, we've been doing it in the
I don't
Conservancy.
see a difference. All I see is that the buckthorn's gone. I don't see the pretty flowers that they've been planting for 5 years.
Oh my gosh, where's Barb who thinks we have too many flowers?
Really? I look at this too, because I walk the trail all the time and I only see purple flowers, that's it.
And those are the wrong ones.
We had so many yellow flowers this year, tons of yellow flowers.
I brought this book along just to pick it up and show everybody. This is a book that lists all the plants in the Chicago region. We live in the Chicago region. It's one of the richest botanical regions in the United States. This book is filled with all these plants. There must be 3,000 of them. What you're looking at when you look out your back window into the conservation easement is the byproduct of a little bit of a misunderstanding between the village and us, Native Restoration Services. When we restored this property around the lake, it was a little vague as to where we were supposed to stop. So we went to basically the path. And once we saw the path, we could see that in some cases, lawns were right up to the path, they're very close to the path. Like on the east side, the first and second and third lot, they're very close to the path. And then as you get further west, they're further away from the path. And we were a little uncertain as to where to stop. So we pretty much stopped at the path. So everything that's at the, gradually as you go west, you'll see more invasive plants. And that is the result of, it's not the result of us not knowing how to do it, or not doing it. It is the result of us not doing it. But we didn't do it because we didn't understand. We didn't understand where the line was. Because nobody really understood till the mayor got involved in doing all this research and seeing the understanding the conservation and the conservancy easement and realizing that it goes 25 feet roughly on everybody's property. We stopped way short of that. So what you're looking at and what you're seeing is a very poor representation of a native area. We're going to be drawing from plants that are listed in that book, certainly a very small number of them. But they're going to be very attractive plants. And they're going to be plants that are going to be, they aren't going to necessarily be tall. In fact, there's a whole group of plants called sedges. They're little grasses. They're very fine. They're very smooth. They're nice to walk on. You can walk on them barefooted. And we can plant sedges out there. One of them is called pen sedge. It's just it grows about that tall. It never gets any taller than that. You talk about ticks and you talk about coyotes, and they can't hide in this short grass. We can plant a lot of that stuff. The most common native plant you're looking at back there is Canada goldenrod. It's about this tall. We're going to try to control that. And we're going to try to put in plants that grow much shorter and that have many more flowers. There's trees and shrubs we're going to try to add. The mayor suggested that everyone's going to have an option to install more trees and shrubs on their property.
But I thought you can't plant anything permanent.
You absolutely can plant things that are permanent. You cannot plant
you can't, I'm going to interrupt, you can't put permanent structures.
You can plant native plants.
Native plants, you can.
You're
Just
not.
no stop.
You're not really.
Turf grass,
You're
yeah.
not allowed. You're not allowed to plant turf grass. I brought a diagram along with me that shows the roots of these plants. And one of the reasons the primary reason the Army Corps is so insistent on the type of plants that are planted, is because they want the ground to be protected, and the ground is protected by the root system. Not really what's above the ground, but more what's below the ground. The native plants have deep roots and they protect the soil. The non-native plants, by and large, don't. So we want to put in native plants. You can plant all the native plants you want, all the way back to the end of your property. You can plant them in any configuration you want to. If you want low-growing plants, I'd like it. If you want to consult with me, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I can give you advice on what works back there and what doesn't.
Who's paying for these native plants and this?
Well, to a certain extent, the village is.
The village will be paying.
You'll go beyond that, and of course, I don't want to speak for the village, but there's going to be an arrangement between the village and the property owners. Because the village, I'm very impressed with how the village is feeling concerned about this. Very concerned, as opposed to other villages wouldn't have this feeling. I work with a lot of villages. Hainesville's a very caring village, and they're reaching out to you guys. And it's because everybody feels bad about it. No one understood it right from the get-go. And now here we are 12, 14 years later, and we've got this whole deal that we have to cope with.
Well, when you're on the east side, you have no yard. When you're on the west side, you have a yard because they had bigger lots. And it's funny because we paid a bigger premium over on our side. Mowing mill. So basically, we're getting left with no lot.
Well, as as Attorney Jim Rock said, you own the property, you still own the property.
Unfortunately, I do.
Well, and you can use the
property is-
land, you can use the land, you can
To
put
do
your,
what? I'm gonna have all these weeds.
they're not gonna be weeds, they're not gonna be weeds, you're not gonna have
Stop
buckthorn.
calling them weeds, because the weeds are the invasive non-natives. We're gonna get rid of virtually all of those.
And you can promise that buckthorn's not gonna come back if you don't mow.
Yes, because we decided to kill it. Now, it'll come back in fractional amounts, and you have to keep at it. That's called.
Who's gonna keep at it? That's-
Right, Lourdes, what,